The Top 5 with Chris Toplack.
Here are my top 5 favorite movies of the 2000s, from 2000 to 2009. That's the span that we're looking at here. And I have to say, before I jump into the list, it was tough coming up with just 5. There are many notables that I had to leave out, and I will name just a few of them. Catch Me If You Can, Crazy Heart, Ratatouille, Casino Royale, Away From Her, Road to Perdition, Little Miss Sunshine, Batman Begins, Lars and the Real Girl, and The Terminal, just to name a few. Now let's get to number 5, released in 2004. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is about an estranged couple who have each other erased from their memories. It's a simple plot with so many layers. It's science fiction, comedy, and romance all married together. From the brainchild of Charlie Kaufman, it remains one of the most original screenplays ever written. Jim Carrey gives his best performance since 1998's The Truman Show, and Kate Winslet is at her absolute best as well. The film really challenges your imagination and also manages to break your heart at the same time. It shows the imperfections of love, and whether we would like to admit it or not, that's something we can relate to. Coming in at number 4, Zodiac, released in 2007. It's based on the Robert Graysmith nonfiction book, and the movie tells the story of the hunt for serial killer Zodiac, who actively slayed his victims in the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 60s and early 70s. The Zodiac killer even dared to mock the authorities with his letters to the newspapers. Robert Graysmith is the San Francisco cartoonist who becomes obsessed with tracking the Zodiac killer down. By the way, these are based on real-life events. Now that makes it even more frightening. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Graysmith, but who really steals the show is Robert Downey Jr. as reporter Paul Avery, a thing of beauty. It's chilling, extremely realistic, and hauntingly compelling. It is, without a doubt, the most suspenseful film of the past decade. At number 3, Up in the Air, released in 2009. It's an adaptation of the novel with the same name. The story focuses on Ryan Bingham, played by the always brilliant George Clooney, who is a corporate downsizer and travels around the country laying off various employees. In the past year, he has spent 322 days on the road, and as he says, 43 miserable days in a one-bedroom apartment that he rents. He lives out of hotels, and he couldn't be any more at home. His line of work becomes drastically altered by a new strategy. Full of doubt, he is now required to bring on Keener, the young woman who implemented the strategy, on the road with him. They don't exactly get along too well in the beginning. Ryan also has a fling with a woman by the name of Alex, who he may or may not decide to chase down despite his bachelor lifestyle. At first glance, you would be led to believe that Up in the Air is simply a romantic comedy. But there's so much more to it than that. Layers upon layers of fear, drama, anxiousness, and dark humor. That's my favorite aspect of it. It's an accurate narrative of the economic downturn America was going through at the time. No wonder why so many were able to connect with this film. And before I move on, I must add, if any other actor played the role of Ryan Bingham other than George Clooney, this film would have never taken off, pun intended. For those who know me well, this film will come as no surprise in the number 2 spot. The Dark Knight, released in 2008, it's a simple story, but there's, again, so much to it. Batman, Commissioner Gordon, and Harvey Dent launch an assault on the mob. Well, they have a clown to deal with by the name of the Joker, who is bent on turning Gotham on itself and bringing any heroes down to his level. First and foremost, kudos to Christopher Nolan, who created this realistic, dark, and gritty world that Batman and all the characters live in. He's the director and the mastermind behind the trilogy. And without him, it just would have never existed. It would have never looked as brilliant and felt that way, too. All of the performances were absolutely spot on, but let's not ignore the obvious. The Joker, played by the late, great Heath Ledger. He embodied the role, and when his character left the screen, you were sitting there wondering when he was going to come back. That's how gripping that character was. There are very few in the past 20, 30 years that have you that attached to it. Whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, whether you loved him or you hated him, you wanted him on your screen so you could see what he would say or do next. Now that is what cinema is all about. That's what acting is all about. And he deserved that Oscar. Now let's get to number 1, released in 2008 as well. It's Wally. The story follows a robot named Wally who is designed to clean up a waste-covered Earth far in the future. He falls in love with another robot named Eve, who also has a programmed task. He follows her in outer space, meets a bunch of friends. They have an adventure, and it changes the destiny of both his kind and humanity. Pixar is arguably the best production company on the planet, responsible for such films as The Incredibles, the Toy Story trilogy, Up, and Finding Nemo. Wally is their crown jewel, their undeniable masterpiece, visually stunning, inspiring, and genuinely charming. It's one of the best love stories of the modern day era and arguably the greatest animated film ever made. You might want to challenge me on that, but go watch the film and judge for yourself. I'm Chris Toplack, and this was my list of the top 5 favorite movies of the 2000s. To further keep in touch with me, stop by my website, christoplack.com, and keep in touch with me on all my social media platforms.